Having such a disaster. I forgot that I had to do a thumbnail first. Oh, great. Nobody's here anyway. I'm thinking, oh my God, you tell everybody to be here at 10 o'clock and you're not here. Oh my God. Okay. Listen, um, just so that you know, this is an open forum. Anybody can ask a question. However, I always have a topic just in case folks don't show up, which, nobody's here yet. That's great. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, what happens when a person is detained by ICE? How long are they held? Can they get bond while they're in deportation proceedings? Well, those rules have changed a little bit. There's lots of changes happening, and all I can say is, if you're watching immigration attorneys talking about bond, don't watch anything that is older than 4 months old. Even this video in 6 months could be totally outdated. So just remember that this is constantly evolving, this whole thing about immigration bonds, particularly some of the new things that have changed. I'm assuming that you know that bond hearings refer to someone who has been detained by immigration, by ICE, and they're in removal proceedings. Usually the judge handling the removal hearing also handles the bond hearing. Your attorney can generally ask for a bond. You file a motion to have a bond hearing. There's a whole package that has to be included in that. If you email me at lamigraitu@gmail.com, that's L-A, migra, M-I-G-R-A, E, which is a capital Y, tu, T-U, at gmail.com. If you email me that, I can send you a copy of the motion that I always use, the draft motion. There's also a questionnaire that they want you to complete, so I can send you a copy of the questionnaire as well. Just when you write to me at lamigreitu@gmail.com, put in the subject line bond motion so that I know what it's about, and I'll just send it off to you. So let's say you have an attorney. By the way, if you're in removal proceedings, get an attorney, okay? Just get an attorney. And so many people are not represented in court. It's pitiful because they don't know what they're like lambs to the slaughter. They don't know what's going on. So you really do need to have an attorney. In fact, everybody should have a little fund set aside. And by that, I'm talking about $5,000, $10,000 set aside. Don't touch it in case there's any kind of an immigration problem. Because when you need to get together $10,000 to have an attorney represent you, it's hard to come up with it all at one time. So start putting some pennies away just to be on the safe side. So your attorney is going to ask you for a bunch of documents. They're going to want his birth certificate. They're going to want, if he's married to a citizen, they're going to want her birth certificate or his birth certificate to show that he's a U.S. citizen, or a copy of the U.S. passport. If there's kids, you want to give your attorney copies of the birth certificates of the kids. If the kids were born in another country and the birth certificate's in a different language, they're going to have to be translated. You're going to have some kind of a letter from your employer that says how much money you could be making and that they need you. So anyway, your attorney files a motion for a bond hearing, and that could take a couple of weeks. It used to only take a week or two, a few years back, but now it's taking much longer, because the immigration courts are overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. They don't have enough judges. They don't have enough trial attorneys. And so these things just get pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. And I just want to check, and there is still no one here. It's only been a couple of minutes though. I have a funny feeling this is going to be a repeat of last week. That's okay, because I totally screwed it up this morning. I'm like, oh my God, I have to do a thumbnail first. It was not good. Anyway, let's get back to where I was. So it might take a few weeks to get that bond hearing going. And generally what happens is that you have a master calendar hearing, and then, the judge has your alien file in front of him, and then he closes that, and then he opens up the next file that he has for you, which is for the bond hearing. And that's simply because the deportation hearings and the bond hearing are like two separate things. So even if you've submitted some of those documents that I just mentioned, if you submitted them, and he has them in his file for the removal proceedings, he's not going to have them in the bond hearing, so they have to be resubmitted. Your attorney's going to know all about that. Make sure if you do hire an attorney that you hire somebody who does deportation defense on a regular basis. A lot of attorneys don't. And you sure don't want the brand new attorney who is like, oh, sure, I could do this. Sure, I could do this. If he looks like he can't do it, get a second opinion. Go see another attorney just to be on the safe side, because this is some serious stuff, and you don't want to be some brand new attorney's guinea pig, basically. And you know what? It's not necessarily based on age, because sometimes people, especially people who speak foreign languages, who are immigrants themselves, or speak a foreign language, they think, I've been doing family law and I hate it. And everybody keeps telling me I should be doing immigration. I'll do immigration. Well, that attorney could be 40 years old, doesn't look like a new attorney, but doesn't have a lot of experience in the area of immigration. So just be careful. I have multiple videos about which attorneys you should be, strike that. I have multiple videos about how to find a good immigration attorney. Or, you know what, if you want, you can have a consultation with me, and I will do my best to find an attorney who is connected to the American Immigration Lawyers Association. That's the big bar association for immigration attorneys. Costs a lot of money to join that. But if the lawyer you're talking to is not a member of AILA, I would not go forward with that attorney, just to be honest, because they don't take themselves seriously as an immigration attorney. They're doing landlord, tenant, divorce, criminal, immigration, this, that, and everything else. You want somebody who focuses in on immigration, specifically deportation defense. So finally, you're going to have this bond hearing, and there's two main things that the judges are concerned about. One, they want to make sure you're not a flight risk, and two, they want to make sure you're not a danger to the community. So if you've never had any problems with the police, you have no convictions, you don't even have any arrests, then there's probably not too much of an issue with you being a danger to the community. However, if you have some assault charges, specifically if you have a domestic violence conviction, sometimes it depends on the judge. Judges can make their own decisions about these things, and some judges are really strict. I mean, there was a judge out in York, Pennsylvania, that if you had a domestic violence conviction, he wouldn't let you out because he considered you a danger to the community. Full stop. Flight risk, that's where all your ties come in. That's where you want to show that you have a U.S. citizen spouse or a mother or a father who's living here, or you've got siblings living here, or you have kids living here. If your kids don't live with you, I get a letter from the mom saying he always pays his child support. That's where you want to show that you've got a job here. You've got ties here. You're not just going to split and go to Houston like one of my clients did. How long have you been living here? They want to see what kind of ties you have. Even if you're a member of the church or you're a member of anything, you could be a member of a local soccer team. Doesn't matter. Show ties here. And that all comes with letters. Those letters have to be dated. They have to be signed. If it comes on letterhead, it just needs a date and a signature. However, if you're just getting letters, which is perfectly fine, if you're just getting letters from friends and neighbors, co-workers, whoever, then they become like affidavits, and those letters have to be signed in front of a notary so that it's notarized. There are some judges who also want, if you're going to submit an affidavit like that, then they also want to see that person's driver's license. You need a copy of the driver's license. The fact that it's been notarized should take care of that because the notary is supposed to do that. But I've had multiple judges that say, I want the affidavit. It's got to be dated. It's got to be signed, and it's got to be notarized. Don't forget the driver's license. So just do what the judge wants you to do. Now, how much is bond going to be? It depends. It was a few years back. Typical was $5,000 to $10,000 in the Philadelphia area. I have something in all these notes someplace, which of course I'm not going to be able to find real fast. Let me see. Here we go. According to TRAC, which is Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, between January and June 2025, bond motions filed by detainees increased almost fourfold, but the median bond required dropped from around $6,500 in January to about $3,500 in June. So, about $3,500. That's pretty good compared to how it used to be. And if you have a criminal conviction, let's say you have a simple assault or you have some kind of criminal conviction that's not too horrendous, and the judge just, like maybe you have one DUI. But by the way, if you have two DUIs, danger to the community. So let's say you have one DUI and they are going to let you out on that. Now I've completely lost what I was going to say. You know, I interrupt myself all the time and then I lose my train of thought. Anyway, if they do let you out, okay, I'm going to have to skip this. I have to learn how to edit these. I don't know how to edit a live stream. This is only my second live stream. So, oh my God, what a disaster. Where am I? Now, some of the people, some of the detainees are going to be detained until their removal hearing is over. That's just the way it goes. And you can guess which ones those are, right? The biggies are the criminal aliens, but with the big crimes like murder and rape and statutory murder, strike that, murder, sexual assault of a minor, money laundering over $10,000, illicit trafficking in firearms, a crime of violence if the imprisonment was a term of at least 1 year, racketeering, gambling, imprisonment term of at least 1 year. So those guys are going to have mandatory detention. So you don't even have to bother watching this because there's no bond available for them, period. How about some of the other folks? The other criminal aliens they can have theft offenses if the imprisonment is for at least a year. A demand or a receipt for a ransom. Child pornography. By the way, if you're enjoying this, you're somewhat sadistic. But if you're enjoying this, please hit like, hit subscribe, so you don't miss other content from me. And if you find this helpful, I did just this past week start a Buy Me a Coffee page, which is just buymeacoffee.com/immigration&you. If you want to leave a little tip, I know nobody's going to want to leave me a tip, but I thought I'd put it up. And since I made the page, I'm going to talk about it. So anyway, hit subscribe. I just hit my 51st subscriber. Woohoo! Heart be still. But hey, I only have like 6 months doing this on YouTube. I have like 36 years doing immigration, but I'm late actually to the whole YouTube thing. There's other attorneys on here that have been here a lot longer than me. But anyway, I'm still learning. Boy, I have a lot to learn. So you have the criminal aliens. Then who else do you have? You have people who have committed crimes involving moral turpitude, like bad behavior crimes. That's moral turpitude. We call it a CIMT, crimes involving moral turpitude. And this is a term of art that we use. And believe me, if you're confused, don't feel bad, because I know a lot of attorneys that they still have no idea what the heck a crime of involving moral turpitude is. But they're like fraud crimes. Credit card fraud, check fraud, wire fraud, welfare fraud, tax fraud, forgery, like if you forged a check, identity theft. So they're the CIMTs, and theft offenses, but you have to have the intent to permanently deprive someone of whatever it is you stole. I think I had something in here I was supposed to mention that I don't think I did. A little bit later in the show, I'm going to give you a list of the exceptions to some of these things. For instance, I had said theft offenses. If you have a theft offense and you got a sentence of a year or more, then you've got yourself a problem, because you're going to be mandatorily detained. However, there's an exception for like joyriding, where usually it's done by kids. You know, they steal your car and they take off and it's found 10 blocks away. That's an exception because there's no intent to permanently keep that car. They just mean to drive it and then drop it off someplace. Another big set of biggies, sexual offenses, sexual assault, statutory rape in many jurisdictions. Because I said many jurisdictions, it also means not all jurisdictions. Again, this is why you really need an attorney, because it's his or her job to figure out whether you qualify for mandatory detention or not. And then there's this lovely phrase, lewd acts with a minor. I don't think that's in the criminal code in Pennsylvania, because I never heard of lewd acts with a minor. So that might be just in other states. I was going to say the southern states. Doesn't have to be. It's just the way people say things. It sounds a little strange. Then the biggie, here's another one that's sort of, there's an exception to it. Drug trafficking related crimes. Like possession with intent to distribute, you ain't going nowhere. You're staying put. This is running a drug trafficking enterprise. However, simple possession, particularly of pot, you should be okay with that. I wish the feds would get on the bandwagon and legalize pot. It's so ridiculous. It might be legal in your state, but it's illegal federally. It's crazy. Aggravated DUI, that could become a crime involving moral turpitude. Most DUIs aren't, but if a DUI involves knowing or intentional harm or driving with a suspended license due to DUI issues, then it's going to be a CIMT, child endangerment enhancement. Prostitution-related offenses, pandering, procuring a prostitute, and pimping, which is very interesting that simple prostitution, the woman, usually the woman, is not a CIMT, which is really strange. That's flipped, isn't it? Because it was always the woman that got arrested, and then the John got released. But now procuring a prostitute is also a CIMT. And of course, pimping would be. Bribery, mandatory detention. That's bribery of a public official, any kind of commercial bribery, jewelry tampering, perjury and false statements, lying under oath. Most of these things, well, maybe lying under all. Here's another one that I was just about to say. Most of these are not going to, be important to just, some guy that got picked up because he was at a protest and they don't like him. He's only got, maybe he's got TPS or maybe he's got an asylum pending. So most of these shouldn't be too much of a problem. But then up pops lying under oath, false police report, which is a lot bigger of a problem than I ever thought it would be, especially if it's with intent to mislead. Arson, obviously, mandatory. And when it comes to CIMTs, things depend on the statute itself. CIMTs are a very complicated part of deportation. So I would strongly advise you to talk to your attorney, see if he can explain it to you. I have not done a video yet on CIMTs just because that would be like a royal pain in the butt, but I might do it. I also said I would tell you which crimes are not CIMTs. So here's the good news. You ready? There are exceptions, like petty offense exceptions, juvenile exceptions. If any of those crimes were committed when they were under 18, there should be a juvenile exception. It depends. If he was tried as an adult, no juvenile exception. Most simple drug possession cases, particularly of pot, possession of paraphernalia. However, don't forget that if you got convicted of possession with intent to deliver or intent to sell, right? That's definitely a CIMT. Simple DUI, DUIs without aggravating factors, DUI involving negligence but not intent or knowledge, DUI without a suspended license enhancement. So DUIs are generally not CIMTs. Disorderly conduct, not a CIMT, which is probably, if your friend got detained, arrested, charged because he went to one of these protests, he's probably getting charged with disorderly conduct. It's not a CIMT, so that's a break. Public drunkenness, also not a CIMT. Disturbing the peace. Basic trespass, which is, when you enter a property without permission. But if there's the intent to commit a crime inside that property, that is definitely a CIMT. Again, simple assault, not a CIMT, as long as there's no intent to injure seriously. If you said to him, come over here, you bleepity bleep, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then you proceed to pummel the guy. That could certainly be enhanced to a CIMT because it was your intent to seriously injure this person. Bar fights, generally not. Assault with offensive touching, but reckless assault, CIMT usually requires intent to cause seriously harm. I just said that. Negligent or reckless driving. Examples of that would be speeding, driving without a license, unless that's combined with a serious injury. And then statutory crimes without intent. Statutory rape laws where no knowledge of age is required. So, everybody should know by now, if you have sexual intercourse with a person who is under 18, that's statutory rape. Whether she said, "Take me, I'm yours," or she didn't. She doesn't have to give consent. If she's under 18, it's statutory rape. But it might not be a CIMT if there's no knowledge of age is required in the underlying statute. Normally, CIMTs, as you've probably figured out, they require some kind of an intentional act. And the whole reason, I'm telling you, of why we're doing all these CIMTs and all these criminal things, these are the people who are mandatorily required to be detained. Weapons possession. That's another thing. If it's just if you got convicted of merely having a weapon when you weren't supposed to, it probably is not a CIMT. You have to look at the statute. You have to look at what was actually charged and what you were convicted of. Carrying a concealed weapon, possession of a firearm without a permit, even felon in possession of a weapon is often not a CIMT. Somebody, if they're a convicted felon, they're not supposed to have a weapon. And then there's vandalism without malicious intent, like graffiti, right? Failure to obey a police officer. I watch all these civil rights lawyers on YouTube, particularly John Bryan. I can never remember if it's Brian John or John Bryan. He's wonderful. He's out of West Virginia. I watch so many of these cops behaving badly. And so one of these things that's not a CIMT is failure to obey a police officer. That's good. All right, can we skip through this? Applicants for admission. So applicants for admission, that means basically non-citizens arriving at a port of entry. And port doesn't necessarily mean it's on the ocean. It can be, it can be a land border crossing area. So applicants for admission who appear subject to removal generally must be detained. These can include expedited removal cases. Who the heck is this? These are people who have come up, they've already tried to get in and turned around and just came right back again. Somebody who's come up and they've ordered expedited removal for this person. Well, they're going to be detained. And if you have been ordered deported, you leave and then you come back, then you're definitely going to be detained, but it's not for like 6 months or something. It's going to be a year or two. And if you do it twice, it's going to be about 3 to 5 years. So they're not playing. And they weren't playing under Biden or Obama either, but this administration in particular. Okay, so let me see. Is anybody? I don't think anyone's here. No one here. It's been 30 minutes. No one's here. That's okay, because I have not done a great job with this video. And the fact that I don't know how to edit it, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to edit this, because this is not good. So anyway, I want to get to the part, and we don't have much left here, is what's new, what's changed. Because everybody's talking about it, but what the heck is new? Well, there was a July 8th memo from ICE, from the acting director, Todd Lyons, which basically said ICE issued a memo directing that undocumented immigrants who entered without legal authorization may not be released from ICE custody during their removal proceedings. That's ICE's position, that judges cannot grant bond hearings to someone who entered illegally. And by the way, that goes back to, we're not talking about you entered illegally 3 weeks ago. It can be 3 years ago. They're saying no bond for you. So this new interpretation is trying to treat unauthorized entrance a lot more broadly than it used to be. So then on top of that, there was a Board of Immigration Appeals ruling. Now, the Board of Immigration Appeals, you go to immigration court, right? You have an immigration judge. You don't like the decision. What do? You appeal it to the Board of Immigration Appeals. And the IJs immigration judges are supposed to follow the BIA rulings, right? So this new rule came out and made some people subject to mandatory detention. Specifically, people who were arrested shortly after crossing between ports of entry, meaning illegally. So ICE says they can't do it, and then the BIA says they can't do it. But just because they say you can't do it doesn't mean you can't. Look, there are lots and lots of attorneys who are still filing for bond. They're still making that motion. And again, like I said earlier, if you want a copy of that motion that I would use, just write to me at lamigraitu@gmail.com and put bond in the subject line. They're still filing for it, and some people are actually getting it. In which case, if you have a judge who was maybe a defense attorney before he became a judge, and he doesn't like the fact that he's been able to give bond to immigrants since he became a judge, and now suddenly he can't, and he doesn't like that, so he's going to grant it anyway. Well, guess what? The trial attorney who works for ICE, they don't like to tell you that. They'll tell you, I work for the Department of Homeland Security, but they're actually under ICE. That's the attorneys for immigration. He's going to appeal it. The trial attorney for the government will appeal that. If your attorney files for bond and it gets denied, your attorney can appeal that. So it goes up to the BIA, and then it can get appealed even higher. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of these cases are going to end up sooner or later at the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court. There's a lot of legal challenges to this, and there's organizations like the National Immigration Law Center is mobilizing. There's a bunch of a lot of nonprofits are saying, we're not putting up with this. Sometimes if you have a big firm, you've got the bucks behind you to be able to fight these, because a lot of times your clients won't. But if it's a sole proprietor and the client's family doesn't have the money to appeal, sometimes they just drop it. So it's really important that organizations like the ACLU or ALA, for that matter, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, or their litigation branch, or National Immigration Law Center, it's really important that those groups and the nonprofits stand up and start pushing back on this. Because you think an immigration attorney is expensive when your family member or friend is put in removal? Just try to have to do an appeal, because that's going to be probably 3 times as much as what you just got done paying for the deportation hearing. So basically what I wanted to say about this, first, I wanted you to have a clear understanding as to who it's been long held cannot get bond. People who have CIMTs, certain people with CIMTs, certain criminal aliens. But now with these new things, anybody who entered illegally, anyone who entered illegally without a visa, no bond for you. I don't know how this administration thinks they're going to pay for all this. Detaining a person costs a lot of money. They're in a prison. They're not even let out into the community with some kind of ankle bracelet. They're in a prison. That means they need guards. That means they need to feed them. They have to house them. They need to give them, jumpsuits, some kind of semblance of clothing. Costs a lot. Plus, they have to rent the space. The government has to rent the prisons for all these immigrants to be held in. How are they going to pay for all of this stuff? I don't get it. And like I said earlier, immigration courts are just totally overwhelmed. So I don't know what they're thinking. Obama, Biden did this too, but Obama was known for it. I'm sure, I would assume that that Obama was called the deporter in chief. There were a lot of people on the left that were furious at him because he was deporting people left and right. But he chose his battles, and he chose the criminal aliens. If you had any problem whatsoever with the police, you were going to get put in removal proceedings. Might not get removed, but you're going to get put in removal. You just can't say we're going to deport everybody. All these protesters, we're going to go over to Home Depot. That was LA, right? They go to Home Depot and round up a group of 30 guys, 50 guys that are just standing there seeing if they can get a day's work. I mean, that's freaking ridiculous. Go after the bad guys. Don't go after every single solitary brown person that you see. Oh, I said it, didn't I? Because that's what it all is. The browning of America. In fact, I have to do this for this week. Latoya McBean did a wonderful live stream. Her live streams are a lot better than mine. But I think it was yesterday, like around 3:00 or so, she did this great live stream about this new case that's been introduced in the House of Representatives. It's not a case, it's a bill that's been introduced, 6225, I think it's called. Comes out of Texas, por supuesto. Comes out of Texas, of course. And it basically wants to halt all immigration, all legal immigration. We got too many people as it is. Too many people. Too many people. What they mean is we have too many brown people. They don't like the browning of America. That's just a fact. I said that years ago when everybody was saying, no, he's not against immigration. Look, his wife's an immigrant. He's not against immigration. He's against illegal immigration. And I said it then, and I'll say it now. It's not just illegal immigration. It's all immigration. The white people, the old white people are dying out. That's a fact. People are changing. What people look like in this country is changing, but their hearts don't change. They come here for a reason. They come here because they think America will give them some refuge. They come here because they think they have a possibility of having a better life here. And yes, I know you can't accept everybody into the country. I get it. But why you would deport, a woman who's 40 years old, who's been here for the last 15 years and has raised 3 kids here and is married to a citizen, why you would pick her to deport? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So anyway, make sure that you are in close contact with your attorney if you know somebody who's been picked up. Make sure you get all the documents that you need. In fact, even before you have a problem with ICE, you might not ever have a problem. Make sure you have all those documents anyway. If you didn't bring them with you, have somebody from home send you an original copy of your birth certificate. Make sure you have a file that's got all the birth certificates of your kids and your spouse, your marriage certificate. Make sure if there's any kind of divorces that took place or someone, a former spouse died, the death certificate or the divorce decree, keep all that stuff in one place. Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And with that, I'm going to say adios. And 42 minutes and 0 people showed up. Well, I'm 2 for 2. I'm 2 for 2. Then nobody comes in. But that's okay, because as you can tell, you compare this live stream with a Jim Hacking live stream or a LaToya McBean live stream. Oh my God, it's like night and day. But like I said, I only have 6 months on YouTube, so cut me a break. And again, buy me a coffee / immigration and you. In fact, I think that's buymeacoffee.com / immigration and you. I know I'm not getting any coffees, but if you're feeling generous, because I just did a video, oh my God, I did a video yesterday that I was supposed to mention. That was like the big thing I was supposed to mention at the end, because it was about why I'm different from other attorneys. And I'm different because I'm basically semi-retired, and all the other attorneys are looking for, they're looking for somebody to hire their firm. That's what they want. It's their marketing. They also want to make sure that people are informed. Don't get me wrong. But I'm semi-retired. I'm living off of Social Security at this point. And so I'm like, I was supposed to mention, buy me a coffee. Please buy me a coffee. Did I remember to do it? No, I did not. So I'm probably never getting a coffee. But anyway, I'm glad that you watched this, because the last live stream that nobody also showed up for, I think that's had like 19 or 20 or 21 views. So hopefully this one gets a couple of views anyway. Oh my God, I have to get better at this. Now I see down here it says edit. So I think I'm going to try and end this stream and then see if I can edit it. I'll probably have apoplexy trying to do this. Anyway, so I know immigration law. I just don't know YouTube all that great. Have pity on me. Anyway, come back every Sunday. I'm going to have a live stream, and I know that tarde o temprano, which means sooner or later, somebody's going to show up with a question. I'm just going to say, you know what? It's just people aren't showing up not because they don't want to, see me. It's just they don't have any questions. I've answered all their questions. I'm trying to think positive. Anyway, have a good week. Have a good Thanksgiving. And please, if you know somebody who has been arrested by ICE, has been put in removal proceedings, get an attorney. If you need to find a good attorney, then contact me. I'll see if I can refer somebody to you. I might know someone in your area. There's no charge to you for that. And that's it. And hopefully I'll see somebody next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.